What's up, everybody? It's Simon from LikeHub. We've been getting a lot of questions from y'all about pop-up campers, and so today I'm here to help you decide whether a pop-up camper is right for you. I have 4 questions for you to answer, and then you will be empowered to be able to make that decision for yourself. Also, stick around to the end because I'm going to bust a couple of myths about pop-up campers as well. Okay, question number 1 that you need to ask yourself if you're considering getting a pop-up camper: how many people are camping with you? So that could be yourself, couple, family, kids, dogs, possibly friends. So how many? What's your party? What's your party size? I would say for 1 person or for 2 people, a pop-up camper is a no-brainer. I mean, it's perfect for couples. Couples without kids, maybe 1 dog, maybe 2 dogs, 3 would be pushing it. Okay, so if that's you, I mean, you're in. We'll move on to the next question. Now, if you have kids, if you're a family, you have kids, if you're 1 or 2 adults and you're 2 kids, I think it makes perfect sense. Pretty much regardless of their age. Now, you might need to size up, as they get older. 3 kids, that's where I'm at. There's 5 of us. We're a family of 5 and a dog. And our kids are almost grown out of our very small pop-up camper. We have the smallest size on the market, which is an 8-foot box. And it's about 14 feet from hitch to rear bumper, right? 2 small beds. Of course, the beds are determined by the box size, so bigger box, bigger beds. And we've just about outgrown it. So if you have 5, you really need to think about, you need to be really careful about, okay, how long is the dinette? How much space, how tall is the kid that's going to be sleeping on that? Can we sleep 2 people on each end? We are just about outgrown that, and we need to make a decision probably in the next year about sizing up our pop-up camper, which might size us out of our storage. So that's another thing to consider that we'll get to later. But I would say 1 through 4 people, slam dunk, move on to the next question. 5 people, you really need to think about the details. 6 people or more, I think you need to go to a bigger camper. Just for clarity's sake, when I'm talking about a pop-up camper, I'm usually talking about a tent trailer because those are the most common types. But I think that for the sake of this conversation, we can also include A-frames. I've camped in an A-frame before, and really simple setup, even easier than a tent trailer. Kind of a lot of the same benefits. They're a little bit heavier, they're a little bit taller when they're packed down, but all things considered, those are good campers too. Question number 2 that you need to answer for yourself: what is your tow vehicle? This may not be as straightforward as you think it is, because sure, a pop-up camper, it's not going to weigh more than 3,000 pounds, I don't think, fully loaded. I mean, our little one, I think the curb weight is like 1,300 or 1,400 pounds, loaded down with a full tank of water, all of our gear, all that kind of stuff. It is not, even like bikes on the back and everything, is not going over 2,000 pounds. That really widens your options for tow vehicle. A lot of vehicles can tow 2,000 pounds. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should tow a pop-up camper with the vehicle, even if the power rating can pull 2,000 pounds. Here's one scenario. So a Jeep. A lot of people like to go camping with Jeeps. Jeeps are fun. I love Jeeps. I don't have one, but I do love them. Cool cars, ubiquitous, American as heck, love them. If you're towing a pop-up camper with a lifted Jeep, even though you might have the V8, with the beefy transmission that's rated for like 6,500 pounds of towing, I still would not tow a pop-up camper with a Jeep through a mountain pass if it's windy. It's a short wheelbase, you have a tall vehicle, if it's lifted, it's on big tires, that is fishtail city, and fishtailing in the mountains in the wind, that's going to lead to flipping. And so I'm out. Towing a pop-up, because it's so light and it can get pushed around by the wind, it's a low profile, so it's better than a tall light camper. But I would say in that scenario, it's not as good as a heavy camper because it's so light. So in that scenario, you want a heavy, low tow vehicle. It was even challenging in a Suburban, in a stock suspension Suburban. You know, V8 and all that kind of stuff. It's still challenging in extreme weather conditions. So there are other things to consider. Now, if you're just going across town, you're going out to the lake for the weekend, strap it up to the minivan and head out of town. That's what makes pop-ups great when it comes to tow vehicles, is that you can put that thing behind anything, a Subaru, all kinds of different options. Small trucks, big trucks, whatever, right? You can pretty much tow those things with anything you can dream up. So consider your trip. If you're going on long haul trips, then you need a good tow vehicle anyway. And a pop-up, that may not be the qualifier to whether you go pop-up or not, if that makes sense. If you're just camping around town and you don't want to upgrade your tow vehicle, a pop-up might be your only option. Okay, question number 3 you need to ask yourself is, what's your budget? This is what gets a lot of people into pop-up campers. It is the entry-level camper. It's going to be the cheapest camper, apples to apples. So if you're going by age, or you're going by how many beds, or so on and so forth, a pop-up camper is going to be the cheapest. You can expect them to be anywhere from $2,000 or $3,000 on up to about $25,000 for brand new. 2 or 3 would be like used and really beat up. $25,000 would be like the biggest, baddest, awesomest, most rigged out brand new one. Okay, so that's kind of your range. And if you've been shopping campers at all, you know, you start talking about bunkhouses, you start talking about fifth wheels. I mean, you can go way north of $25,000 in a hurry. So that is what usually gets people into pop-up campers, because that gets them into the camper game. Okay, so what's your budget? Your budget, that might limit you to only pop-up campers just in and of itself. Question number 4 you need to ask yourself is, where am I putting this thing? Storage. Are you going to pay for storage? Do you have storage? Do you have a spot on the side of the house? Do you have room in the garage? That's where I keep mine. I keep it in the garage. And to be honest, that is the primary reason we have not sized up yet. I do not want to pay for storage. But if we size up at all, other than just, getting a slightly bigger pop-up camper, I'm going to have to pay for storage. Or I'm going to have to ask a gigantic favor from, friend or family member who's got a little bit of space that I can, which I don't want to do that either, right? That puts the relationship in a spot, okay? And so paying for storage, I mean, in my area, you're talking about $150 a month to start. And that's just like, ooh, golly, that gives me heartburn. I can't stomach that. Just to store the camper that already fits in my garage. I really don't want to do that. So think about what your storage situation is. Think about what your storage capabilities are. You keep a pop-up camper inside, it will last twice as long as if you keep it outside. I promise you that. I have looked at a lot of used campers. And thankfully the camper that we have now has been inside most of its life. I'd say 80% of its life. And it is, it's 14 years old. You wouldn't know it, okay? You keep it inside, that thing will last and last and last and treat your family well. You keep it outside, who knows, right? We've had hailstones. I live in middle America. We've had hailstones like that. That'll put a wrecking on a camper with aluminum roof that's that thin, right? So think deep and hard about your storage situation and what that means for your camper storage. There's a few other things that you should probably consider. Those 4 are the main 4 that will help you make that decision. But you should also consider what types of trips you're going on. You going to the desert? Are you in the deep south in the middle of summertime? Are you up north in the wintertime? You're talking about a tent trailer. It's gonna lose heating and cooling efficiency like crazy. Now, it doesn't take long to fill the space. The heaters work really well and they warm it really well, and the air conditioner cools it really well. I mean, we can camp in 100 degrees in the south in the summertime and sleep just fine, no problems at all. But you're losing a lot of efficiency over the tent. Are you hauling it for a long time? Are you hauling it over rough terrain? Light campers bounce like this on dirt roads. I mean, it's abusive, like how much they bounce and move around. It's kind of shocking to look in the rearview mirror and see this thing. I mean, it reminds me of that Goofy short cartoon where he goes camping and the trailer's just like doing this the whole time, and it looks cartoony. It really looks cartoony. So think about what kind of weather you're going to find yourself in, how long your trips are going to be, and all that kind of stuff. That all factors into what kind of camper you should buy in the first place anyway. Okay, a few other considerations. Noise. Now it's heavy duty canvas is kind of like a tarp type material. It's like a real thick, it's not quite canvas, it's not quite tarp, but it's not a wall either. I mean, camper walls are not like 1.5 inches thick, okay? They're made with 1x2s and, aluminum or fiberglass or both. Camper walls are not thick. So canvas, I mean, you're gonna get some noise transferring. I've never really had too much problem with that when you're camping. Security, even though the doors lock, we never lock them because you can just Velcro the canvas open and just unlock the door. So, they're not very secure. If you're expecting that, don't ever leave valuables in a pop-up camper when you're out camping, when you're out hiking or you're swimming or something like that. I've talked to too many people who it's just too soft of a target. Lock everything in your car. Storage, when you're on-site camping, everything for us is going to go under the camper. We have like bins and stuff that stack and all that kind of stuff. It's going to go under the camper, or it's going to go under one of the ends, the beds. That's never really bothered us. But if you're real like type A, hyper organized, everything in its place, a big box camper is just going to have more storage capabilities, and it's going to be a better experience for where your gear lives all the time and preparedness and all that kind of stuff. If that's important to you, pop-up camper, maybe not a good fit. What are the pros and cons of pop-up campers? Okay, we've already kind of talked about this, but one of the pros and one of the cons is the weight. Usually that's pro, right? Just because that's less wear and tear on your engine and transmission in your tow vehicle. That's better fuel economy, et cetera, et cetera. It's usually safer. And so there's a lot to love about them being light. Every now and then the wind, if it's like super high crosswinds, I'm talking like gusts of 40 miles an hour or higher, can be problematic. But honestly, that's gonna be problematic with anything you're towing. It could be a boat, it could be a big camper or whatever. That's gonna be a problem anyway. Another pro is that they're inexpensive. We've already covered that as well. And they're super easy to store. That gives you a lot of storage options. Some of the cons of a pop-up camper. Number one is that the canvas is kind of always on your mind when you're packing it up. So, is it dry enough? Is it clean? We don't want any rips or holes or tears or anything like that. It's not delicate. It's pretty hardy, but packing it up with dewy canvas will lead to mold. So you can't do that. So, that's happened to us 2 different times where we had to wait for rain to stop, wait for it to dry, pat everything down with towels, wait for that to dry, check it all again. And so you kind of have to baby the canvas sometimes. I would say for us, it's been no more than like 1 out of 5 trips, probably more in the like 1 out of 10 trips kind of range where we have to really baby the canvas and pay attention to that. But it's on your mind. Space is a con. You're limited on space. These things are not built for space. They're built to be a compact, tiny little thing that gives you beds, basically. That's what it is. The stove is small, the fridge is small, the sink is small. If you have a potty, it's small. Everything's tiny. They're not made to be in all day long. They're made to sleep in, the end. And they're okay at everything else. Okay, time to dispel some pop-up camper myths. All right, number 1, they take so long to set up. I have a video on that. I'll put a link down below. It's not that bad. In fact, all things considered, like half of the steps you have to do with a big camper anyway, or if you're tent camping, it takes about the same time to set up camp with a pop-up camper or a tent. And it takes probably not even twice as long to set it up compared to a big camper. You still have to level, you still have to put your stabilizers down and all that kind of stuff. There's a few extra steps. You crank it up, pull the beds out and supports, drop the door down. Not that big of a deal. Once you run through it a few times, once you get comfortable with it, you realize too, not that big of a deal. End to end, from when we pull up to when we're fully set up, or vice versa, when we start to break camp to when we're pulling out, 1 hour. 1 hour. Tell me how different that is than tent camping or camping with a big camper. It's really not that bad. Myth number 2 is the durability. They're pretty durable. It just depends on how you treat them. Like I said, if you leave them out in the weather, then yeah, they're gonna get beat to heck. You're gonna end up with leaks, especially if you're not checking on the seams all the time. They're just getting beat with UV rays. They're catching hailstones. Then yeah, you beat up your camper, and a pop-up camper is not gonna last as long as any other camper, but they're both not gonna last very long that way either. So the durability, I think that's a myth because you treat it the same, apples to apples compared to another camper. It's going to be about the same. They're built with the same materials. They're built the same fashion. You treat them the same, you're going to get the same results. And the same thing goes for myth number 3, which is that they don't last very long. That's why they don't last very long. If you don't take care of them, you don't keep up on your seals, then yeah, there's more places to leak and stuff like that when it's popped up if you abuse your canvas, but you take care of your canvas. We've never had any problems with our canvas. I mean, we've never ripped or anything like that or had any holes or tears. Like, it could happen. It could, accidents happen, but you take care of it. You just go slow when you're packing it up. Not a big deal. They only last not as long as bigger campers because people abuse them. That's it. It's a stigma. It's not a true apples to apples fact. Okay, if you've decided that a pop-up camper is for you, I have 2 videos for you to watch next. Number 1, I'll put them up here too. Number 1 is how to inspect a used pop-up camper. There's a lot of red flags to look for. I've learned what those are over the years, and I go through that in full detail. And then number 2 is how to set up a pop-up camper by yourself the right way. So if you've never done it before, this will teach you every single step of how to do it, okay? And how to do it in the best way and the safest way so that you don't get hurt and nobody in your family or party gets hurt, okay? Watch those 2 videos. I'm Simon from Lake Hub. We'll see you out there.